Okay, so now that we have these triangle congruence postulates, we are going to be moving into proving that triangles are congruent given only a little bit of information. Because again, we talked about we don't need to know that all three sides and all three angles are the same. We can only know a little bit and still say two triangles are the exact same. So these are going to be some common reasons you guys are going to have when you're writing your proofs. And we're just going to have kind of a little cheat sheet that hopefully will help you identify when you come across these situations, what the reason should be. So go ahead, have this on like a separate piece of paper with just copy down. We've got 4 different types of reasons we're going to be talking about. Okay, so the first reason we have here, let's look at this picture here. Now, again, you would have an actual full-on proof. I'm just looking at this one statement. Obviously, you would have a whole rest of the proof to go along with it. You would have a given. So what we're doing is we're pretending we already had our given. So even though this is just one, this is our first statement, we're not going to say it's given. I'm just saying whenever something like this pops up in a proof, what will the reason be? We're not doing a full-on proof. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so if you see a picture like this, anytime you see a picture where you have 2 triangles kind of touching at the tip, we are able to say that these angles are congruent. So that's what we have here. Angle ACB, angle A to C to B, is congruent to angle D to C to E. Now, the reason why we can say these are congruent is because this is a special angle pair. Do you remember what we call these angles? These are vertical angles. So the reason why we are allowed to say angles that look like that, where we've got an X, are across from each other, those are vertical angles. Now, I just want to make sure you understand as well that this applies even if the picture is turned. These are also still vertical angles. It's the same thing. The picture just gets turned. So once more, if we see angles across from each other like that in these 2 triangles, we're allowed to say they're congruent because they are vertical angles. So here's another situation. Sometimes you will see a picture like this where we have 2 triangles back to back. Yeah, we have triangle ADC and triangle ABC. Now, you might see somewhere in the proof, again, I'm not saying this is going to be the first statement because the first statement is always our given. We're just saying if you see a statement like this where it says AC is congruent to AC. Well, that doesn't sound like it's saying much, and it's really not. It's kind of stating the obvious, but we do have to say this is a true statement. Now, what happened here is, again, we have 2 triangles. They are sharing side AC, right? We got this little marking through right here. What that means is AC is congruent to itself. This should make sense. If I have 2 things right up against each other, in both of those triangles, they're sharing that side, it's the same length. This is going to be a new reason. So make sure you have this one again, especially all of these, but this is a new. We call this reflexive property. The reason why is it's like a reflection, right? You are equal to your reflection. One triangle is sharing the side of the other triangle. It's like a reflection in the mirror. You are equal to yourself in the mirror. This is called reflexive property. So once more, if you see something equal to itself, reflexive property, that's what that's called. Okay, now let's look at something like this. So say that you are given something really long and fancy. In particular, this says AB and CD bisect each other. So if this is your given, here's what reasons will pop up. Whenever we have a given that uses a vocab word. In this case, bisect is a vocab word, right? Sometimes they might also use midpoint. When we see a vocab word, here's what ends up happening. We say, what does it mean if AB and CD bisect each other? Well, hopefully you remember that bisect means cut into 2 equal pieces. So if AB and CD bisect each other, that means they cut each other in half. They cut each other into 2 equal pieces where they cross. So notice we have that AE is congruent to EB. Let's mark that on the picture. AE congruent to EB. So the reason why we are allowed to say this is because we just said AB is being bisected by this one. It's like being chopped in half like a knife. CD is the knife that cuts AB in half. So if AB is bisected, we are allowed to say this piece is one half, this piece is the other half, they are congruent. And the reason we give is, this is the definition of bisect. I'm going to go ahead and put def for definition of bisect. Bisect means cut into two equal or congruent pieces. So that's our reason we give. We say these are congruent because that's the definition of bisect. So if you can guess, the next statement is the same thing, that DE is congruent to EC. Notice that I'm putting two markings on there because we don't want to say that all of these segments are congruent, just that these two pieces are congruent to each other and then these two pieces are congruent to each other. But it's going to be the same reason. The reason we're allowed to say that is because CD is also getting bisected, cut in half, cut into two equal pieces. So our reason, once again, will be definition of bisect. If you are given a vocab word, definition of that vocab word will be a reason somewhere in your proof. So let's go ahead and do our last one. So this one now is a situation where you are given that lines are parallel. So if you guys can recall, it's been a while. How we mark that two lines are parallel is we put little arrows on them. That means they're going the same direction, they're pointing the same way. So we are given that lines are parallel. Now, if you recall, if we know lines are parallel, we know certain angles are congruent. So here's what they told us then. They next said that DAC, which is this angle right here, is congruent to BCA, which is this angle right here. So because we have parallel lines, the reason for this is actually one of our parallel line postulates. Now, if we ignore, did I do this right? Oh crap, I did this wrong. Sorry guys, I don't want to have to redo this whole video, so I'm going to backtrack here real quick. I'm going to go ahead and say that, let me change the angles on this. Sorry guys, I just don't want to redo this whole video. I just realized I did it wrong. Don't worry about why I did it wrong. Let me just fix this real quick. We're going to go ahead and keep those angles congruent. Sorry, those lines parallel. Let's change this to say this angle and this angle. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this over here. Sorry, erasing your paper. Hope you're not using pen. This is now angle DCA congruent to angle BAC. So again, D to C to A, B to A to C. Those are my two angles. Because if you notice, look at what I copied after I fixed this. Don't worry about why I did it wrong. If I just focus on my two parallel lines and my transversal, these angles right here are congruent because they have a special name. What is the name of those congruent angles? What's the name of the relationship? Alternate interior. So if we have alternate interior angles, that's angles. If we are given parallel lines, one of those postulates will pop up. Alternate interior, consecutive exteriors, it's going to be one of those. Very often it's alternate interior. That's one of the most commonly ones used. So again, if we see parallel lines, one of our reasons will be one of those postulates. Alternate interior, corresponding, something like that. Sorry that I messed that up, guys. Hopefully you were able to fix that. Don't worry about why it didn't work out. I'm not going to explain it because it's just going to confuse you more. So I just need to fix that. Okay, so now we have this little cheat sheet that we can refer to when we're looking at proofs these pictures are very common, so that we can kind of get an idea of what some of our reasons we're going to have to choose will be.